You're listening to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast, where we discuss whatever the fuck we want to. And yes, we can put sex and drugs and Jesus all in the same bed and still be all right at the end of the day. My name is Devanin, and I'll be interviewing guests from every corner of this world as we dig into topics that are too risque for the morning show, as we strive to help you understand what's really going on in your life. There is nothing off the table, and we've got a lot to talk about, so let's dive right into this episode. Happy New Year's Eve, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in for the final show of the year. It's been a phenomenal year, and I want to thank you for your kindness and for your support, for your love, and I send that all right back to you. Here's to a fantastic 2022. Today, I'm going to be talking with a bad bitch by the name of Heather Wylde, y'all. This woman is a transformational business and life coach. But before that, she was a hooker, she was raped, she was a college dropout, and she was a drug addict, amongst several other things, which we will talk about in the show. This woman is living proof that your trauma in your past doesn't have to be what defines you today. In this episode, we're going to talk about fake orgasms, we're going to get an insider look at the escorting industry. We're going to talk about some bullshit ass employers. And, what would Jesus really do about several things that are going on in this world? And we hit on this and a lot of other things. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year. Hi, baby. Thank you so much, Heather, for coming on the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. Hallelujah, tabernacle, and praise, my bitches. Yeah.
I get an amen.
Up in here, all up in here. Heather, I'm looking forward to this time that we're about to spend together. We're two beautiful women from perverted backgrounds who are incredibly productive individuals trying to share some shit with society so that they can help their own asses to improve and get better, or tell a bitch that they know. And we're going to talk about how you're a great coach and the crazy things you've been through, surviving cancer and beating addiction and being an escort, coming up out of that life, and not to mention all the beautiful heels that you wear. And we're going to talk about all the value that you have to add to society, and especially entrepreneurs and people who are trying to take what they do to that next level, and you do it in a very unique way. But before we get into all of that productive shit about you, girl, I want to talk about these fake orgasms. I heard it through the grapevine. I heard it all the way through the grapevine. You and feeling too fine. And I want to know, where did you start using fake orgasms? Where did this come from?
So I don't advocate using fake orgasms. People need to know when they're doing well and when they're not. And it's really sad when you meet somebody who thinks they're way better in bed than they are, because a bunch of people have faked it, right? But when you're an escort, knowing how to fake a realistic fake orgasm is really a good skill to have, because sometimes your agency's blowing up your phone and they need you to get the fuck out of wherever you are and go see somebody else. Or sometimes you just find somebody who has got a lot of stamina and you're just fucking over it and you need them to come. So when you do fake orgasm to encourage male orgasm. So when I was on Jay's podcast, so that's how we met. Jay Shipman introduced us. I was talking about funny stories from my escorting life, and one of them involved me faking orgasm. So I gave a little quick tutorial about what not to do and what to do. Do you want a demonstration?
Yeah, and I bought a prop to the set today, which is one of my this is one of my homegrown cucumbers. We've begun our fall harvest. This is just the first round. They get much bigger than this. And actually, my boyfriend and I are going to be inserting this into my asshole tonight. And that's why it's here in my bedroom where I'm recording from, because I bought this in case we need some inspiration.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so big. Oh yeah. Oh God. Oh, over the top. One of my favorite quotes from this sex education book I read was that learning to have sex by watching porn is like learning to drive by watching car chases. Like, car chases are fun to watch, but you don't want to learn from them. Porn's the same way. Fun to watch, not necessarily educational. So a good fake orgasm is just a little more understated. So it's just like, oh yeah, oh yeah, right there. Oh God, those.
Okay.
So there you go.
Well, fortunately, in the gay world, I mean, there's no really faking needed. It's not like we can. If there ain't nothing coming out the tip of your dick, well, then you didn't come, and that's all there is to it.
Well,
So
there's male escorts that learn how to fake orgasms because if they come too much, it's harder for them to get it up for the next client. So it's something that's done, just probably not by normal society.
I could feel that. I can see where a male escort would need to fake an orgasm in order to make that money. No, but me, I'm such a cum whore. They better not fake with me. If you're gonna stick your dick in me, you better fill this asshole up with that good baby gravy because that's what I'm in it for. you know.
I'm not cum phobic, but I don't love cum. I have a limit. Like if there's too much cum, it freaks me out. But I actually had a couple of clients like this too, but I dated a guy that if cum got on him at all, he freaked out.
Like
And
his own
I'm sure
cum,
it's a trauma thing.
cum or like yours.
Either one.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I hope that he gets healed of that in the name of Jesus.
In the name of Jesus. Yeah. Like you have sex and he's like jumping up immediately to like clean off. Like I said, it's probably a trauma response. Yeah. And I ran across men that don't like blowjobs. It happens.
He just likes to get right to the point. I don't blame him. I can't judge him for that. Not at all. So what made so explain to us exactly what sort of coach you are. You have a very cute website, which all that's going to be in the show notes and everything like that. But in your own words, tell us what sort of coach you are and what your target market is.
So I am all about helping people that are mission based coaches, healers, or service providers. Like, in other words, they're not just in this to make a lot of money. They're actually in this because it's a part of their higher purpose. They're really here to serve people, to really be an agent of change for positive change in the world. And the problem with those of us that are really mission based is that you come into the online world, you pretty quickly figure out that you can't do it on your own, that there's just too much to know to try to do it on your own. So you start investing, and most of the ways that are taught about marketing and sales in the online world have some really sleazy elements to it. I call it sociopathic sales, where people are being very pushy and manipulative in the way they're selling. There's a lot of really hypey and manipulative marketing. And my niche is I help people that are mission based to learn to market and sell in a way that feels really good to them, but and it is also effective and gets their mission out there and gives them the money to lead like really interesting lives. If your goal in life is to live in a McMansion and drive a Mercedes and, have a Louis Vuitton purse, you're probably not my client. I like working with the people who have kind of quirkier, more eclectic, dreams of like traveling around the world to visit caves um, or, living like luxury off grid or something like that. But yeah, I'm for the people that really want to know how to sell and market in a way that don't feel like they're selling their soul.
Okay, I want you to speak more to the whole selling your soul because that's a recurring theme throughout your website ethics, integrity. And you did touch on it, but can you give me specific example or examples of some sort of treachery that you saw so we could be on the lookout for it? What did you see that makes it such a repetitive theme for you?
Yeah, happy to. And I'm actually writing my first book. It's going to be out in January, and it's about how to spot the predators and scammers online so that you can make good investments that actually grow your business. So what happened with me is that I kept investing in these big grid programs, and one of the things I didn't know was that it's a grid program, and they're aiming all their marketing at new entrepreneurs, people who are newer to the business. They might not even know their niche yet. They're probably not making sales, and they'll use testimonials and say, this person went through my program and they doubled their ROI, their return on investment in the first month. Well,
Hmm.
what they don't tell you is that that person was actually a one-to-one client, and that person already had 4,000 Facebook connections and was already making sales of 2,000 plus a month. So for that person who already has a somewhat established business, it's nothing for them to double their ROI. I mean, it's impressive, but it's a lot easier to do that. Now, for somebody who's brand new and they barely know their niche or they don't know their niche yet, that's not going to happen. And so they're using these very, I call it toxic testimonials, these very misleading testimonials to market to people. So that's something that's very common. One of the most obnoxious things that I directly experienced is this course that taught you to sell with a sales script, and which, that's kind of common. I don't really advocate scripts, but they're not in and of themselves toxic. Well, this one, they wanted you to use it for word because it was written in NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. It's a
Hmm.
form of hypnosis.
Right.
So you're hypnotizing people without their permission and then pitching for them to send thousands of dollars at the end of that call. I did not find that ethical. And when I raised as an issue, I was like, I just don't quite feel comfortable with this. I was told that it was my success mindset. I needed to go work on my success mindset, that it wasn't unethical, that it was my own problem. And that's a very big thing in the coaching industry is, you go through somebody's program. If it doesn't work, they'll tell you it's your mindset that's the problem. And it's like, if you showed up and you did everything they told you to do and it didn't work, it's not a mindset issue. That's the program sucked, but a lot of this, there's a lot of sleazy stuff. There's a lot of really great people that are in this for the right reasons that are doing amazing things, and personal growth saved my life. Therapy kept me from jumping off buildings. Personal growth made it so that I didn't want to jump off buildings anymore. So I know the power of this. It's why I'm so passionate about it. And it's why I want to help the people that are in this for the right reasons to get out there and get their work because I know the power of it. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are just in it to get paid. And there's nothing wrong with money, nothing wrong with making great money, but you don't have to be a sleazy asshole in order to do it.
Amen. 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 On a Tuesday evening, the NLP is true. The neuro-linguistic programming, because I'm certified as a hypnotherapist,
Mhm.
so I studied all about that, and it's true. There is a lot of low-key hypnotherapy and all kinds of ads for everything you see in churches,
Mhm.
out of pulpits, everywhere you go. They're trying to mind fuck you, and that's why I always preach. It's important to know why you believe what you believe, and be sure that you know where you're coming from, and that it's not something somebody else put into your head without you being aware of it, because the shit can be done real slick. Give me an example, like what would be the name of like a profession or a sort of business? Because healers, service providers, and I know that people listening to this, they're gonna, if you're speaking to them, they're gonna know that you're talking to them. But I'm just a detailed bitch and I just want to know.
No, it's good. And I need people to challenge me on this because I'm really good at helping other people do this. But when I get to my own stuff, I'm like, blah, 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 which is the curse. Like most people, if they're a great copywriter, they can't write copy for themselves. They're a great, mindset coach. They can unmind fuck anybody, but they can't unmind fuck themselves. So let's see some examples of people that I've worked with. I worked with an amazing Reiki healer and spiritual coach, or she worked with me rather. I worked with a brilliant young man that is a business coach primarily for LGBTQ plus community. I've worked with a woman who has her own HR company where she's the outsourced HR for small businesses. I've worked with a copywriter. There's some other people. Yeah, that's a pretty good, representative. My big thing is it's not so much the type of coach or healer that they are, it's really just what's in their heart. Are they doing this because they just want to make $10,000, oh my God, in 30 days, which ain't gonna happen, no matter how much you see that on Facebook? Or are they in this because, they have something that's been laid on their heart, and there's a soul contract that they're fulfilling, that they're here to make a difference for people. That's the people that I work with. So it's that mission based. I will say this. One of the things about me that really sets me apart from other business coaches is that so many business coaches don't know how to help you find the value and the ROI for your program unless you're a business coach or a money coach, right? I am brilliant at helping people turn their intangible results. Like your happiness coach, you make people happy. And it's like, okay, well, how do I explain the value of that? I'm really good at taking that intangible and showing you how fucking valuable it is and actually turning it into a dollar amount that you can talk to your potential clients about. Because one of the most common sales objections is I can't afford it. Well, if you could show somebody how much money it's costing them being unhappy, it's going to make your program look like a deal. Right. So I'm really good at working with non-business coaches, although I have coached some business coaches.
Okay, excellent. That sounds totally kick ass. So you talk about on there how people can attract and sign their dream clients. You talk about this on your website, which is beautiful. And I've said that 1,000 times. I'm sure I'll say it again because it's pretty and pink and it's not overly pink. It's just like just right. And very, very Olivia Newton, John Grease,
Oh,
coming to me. And so, but you talk about damaging karma.
mm,
So this is speaking to the bad business practices. So So can we take a moment because maybe some people who are doing bad business practices might not be aware of how it's actually hurting them. Would you have any advice for such people who are more on the predatory side of things but don't see it that way?
well, I think a lot of people, when I learned that NLP script, I didn't feel like it was right, but you have to have a beginner's mindset. You can't go into everything thinking that you know something, right? Otherwise, you're not going to learn, right? So it's a fine line of holding on to what and then but also being too stubborn to learn. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You have to walk that line, right? So with that, I tried it for a while. And because it didn't feel aligned for me, because it felt really gross to me, I didn't really make many sales. I did make a few sales, but then I was always like, did they really want to work with me or did I mind them into working with me? And that didn't feel good. A lot of it is, people will pay thousands of dollars to work with a mentor, and that mentor will really influence them and just be like, no, this is the only way your business is going to get started. Or you see a lot of this rationalizing of, this person needs your program. So it's okay for you to bully them into buying from you because it's for their own good. So you see a lot of this rationalization, right? So people really like go with your gut. If it doesn't feel right to you, then it doesn't feel right to you. Um, One of the biggest things is you'll see people that are still doing this cold pitching, where they'll come into the DMs on Facebook or Instagram, wherever, and they haven't even said hello to you, but they're like, I've got this great product or this program and it's going to be perfect for you. And you're like, fuck you. You haven't even said hello. You know nothing about me.
Right.
And you know that they're just sending out hundreds of those messages a day. A lot of times they paid thousands of dollars to learn this technique from somebody who swears that it's the only way for them to do business. So most of the time, I keep my cool about it. It depends on how they come at me. I have gotten kind of nasty with people with that. But yeah, I mean it if you do that, people there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be turned off. Another thing people will do that's really underhanded that a lot of people teach you to do is they say get people on a coffee chat, get them on a networking call, and then when you get on the call with them, you try to turn it into a sales call. And it's a pet peeve. People fucking hate it. And what that tells me, if you're doing that, is that you don't have the strength of conviction about what you do and how good you are at it and the product or the service that you're offering. Because if you did have that strength of conviction and that confidence, then you would approach me and say, hey Heather, I've got this thing. I think it would be really good for you. Let's have a consultation about it. But you're trying to sneak the call on me, like that just reeks of desperation.
All sneaky like.
It's gross. It's just gross, No, don't do it.
Don't do it, people. Don't do it because it'll only hurt yourself. You get back what you send out. And if you send out deception and everything like that, well, you will have your day. And that's not something that I wish upon you. I've done bad shit in my day. It's come back to bite me in the ass, just because it's cloaked in pretty corporate clothes doesn't make it great. So we got to really be careful of what we buy into. So,
Mhm.
so
Just
you,
because
you
it's legal doesn't mean that it's clean. I know when I, went to real estate school and I got my real estate license, and the first broker I went to talk to, he was such a good salesperson, he made me high. Have you ever talked to somebody that was such a good salesperson that you felt high after talking to them?
sure.
This guy was just like, and I got home and I was telling my boyfriend about it at the time, and I was like, "And this and this and this." And as I was saying it, I was like, "Wait a minute, that's not good." But the way he put it, the way he mind fucked me with it, it took me saying it out loud and talking to somebody else to be like, "Wait a minute, that's not in my best interest." And I thought about it and I was like, "He's a pimp. He's a fucking pimp." I'm like, if I'm gonna have a pimp, I'll stay doing what I'm doing. I'm not gonna go into real estate. Yeah.
Oh my God. That reminds me, this might be a little shady, but I don't care. I'm going to say it. This new business model that I've seen popping up where you'll have somebody who, oh my God, say they don't actually, for instance, know how to garden or some shit like that. And so they'll go and find a whole bunch of people who can and establish the infrastructure around it and get clients and say, I want to hire a gardener. Well, then the person who doesn't know how to garden, who owns the business, will charge the customer $100 for the gardener and then pay the gardener like 10. you know, and you see this in all kinds of industries, and they're all like, well, I don't have to know what I'm doing to make money. I'll just hire people who do know what they're doing. Okay, I can meet you halfway on that as long as you're splitting the money 50-50. Because without them, you wouldn't have anything. And if they got more courage and had a more entrepreneurial spirit, then they would need your ass to begin with, because you don't have the skill to do the job. You're just pimping people out. And that's
Right.
something that I see a lot. And I'm all like, I wouldn't do the job for $20 and then this bitch is making 80 off of me with each client. No.
And this is how this backfires on you. So before I got full time into coaching, I was a limo driver. And there was a guy that I met, like limo driving is so much like escorting. It's hilarious. So I met this dude through a company we both worked for. He had his own little company and I would go and I would do runs for him, but he was cheap. He was so fucking cheap. And his clients, his really good clients, he had me and another driver, and it was an older gentleman. And the older gentleman fucked up all the time, not because he was older, he just fucked up all the time. Like he just didn't, but he was only getting paid like $30 a ride, right? And I was making the guy pay me a little bit more, and I was really good with his clients. Well, his clients wouldn't the guy's name was George. They were like, "No, you can't send me George anymore. Like, we'll take Heather. If you're not available, we'll take Heather, but we're not doing it." And I stopped doing a lot of rides from him because I got other, better sources of trips. And he was like, "I don't understand why you go, come work with me." And I'm like, "Because you don't pay shit. And that's why the only person who ever sticks around for you is this one guy, but he's a fuck up. Like if you paid people better, the better people would stick around and your life would be a lot easier. But because you're trying to be cheap, your customers are constantly getting pissed off and you're having to like retrain and like run after people all the time." I'm like, just fucking pay people a decent wage. Like, it's not that hard.
As we've seen demonstrated with the pandemic, because people stopped working, and now you see these signs popping up, McDonald's $10 an hour, this place 15 an hour. Okay, you could have been doing that the whole time. And
Yep.
now people still are not wanting to go back to work. The government benefits, are being cut off or have been cut off, but people still are not returning to those old jobs
Mhm.
because they had like a whole epiphany of spiritual awakening and everything like that. And it's too late for the employers who have been paying their CEOs and managers ridiculous money when they've had people setting on the ground on food stamps and stuff like that who couldn't even afford to feed their babies, but the damn managers are making six figures. I used to be um,
Multiple six figures.
right.
Multiple.
People don't know that. I was an employment counselor in Texas for the Texas Workforce Commission for a while and would hire for the service industry. Shit. I mean, you could manage a fast food restaurant and make upwards of 80, 90,000 to start. And meanwhile, the person there is making minimum wage, the fry cook. Oh, and
Yep.
then let's not talk about the bonuses and everything. By the time it's all said and done, there is a fucking lot of money in in the things that Americans really like to consume.
Mhm.
Bullshit, my opinion. But
Mhm.
but treating the workers so bad like that is one thing that I love about the pandemic because it all came out. People really got their life and they told their employers to go and fuck themselves, and they're not going back to that abuse no matter how much money they're offered.
And it is abusive. And, it's all the worse when you're struggling at home because you can't pay your bills. And, for people who are parents, I think a lot like my dad, God help him, is a Trump fan. And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't understand why these people just won't go back to work. And I'm like, well, a lot of them, if they go back to work, then they've got to pay for childcare and you can't pay childcare. At least if they're sitting at home getting a government check, they're actually can do something with that money other than just give it to childcare. I'm like, there's extenuating factors. It's not that people are lazy. It's just they're sick of the abuse. They're sick of the bullshit. And, living is expensive. And if bust your ass at a minimum wage job, you still won't be able to make ends meet. Like, it's ridiculous.
But things are changing and they're changing for the better. So speaking into keeping with the spirit of working, you've had a lot of jobs. When I was researching you, I see you worked at Wendy's. I worked at Wendy's. I ate up all that shit. And McDonald's, you did Walmart, Kroger, clothing store. I was a bartender, so you were a bartender. You were a stripper. I took some pole dancing classes once. A limo driver,
That's just a
concierge. You were apartment leasing agent and an Uber Lyft driver. Very seldom do I meet somebody who's had just about as many jobs as I have had. I've worked every fucking where under the sun. So I want you to speak to include Raising Cane's, Wendy's. I've worked in the mall. I've been a model. I've modeled for mall stores, light company. I've been a janitor, food delivery driver, several different restaurants, drug dealer, selling everything under the sun, a massage therapist, podcast host, author. So I want you to speak to the spirit of a hustler, and how that is a great attitude to have, that grind, and
Mhm.
how that ties into your coaching.
Okay. So I love the term hustler the way that your high school track coach talked about it. Like, get out there and hustle.
Right.
That get out there, give it your all, do the damn thing, right? And be about it. Like I love this pimpisms. My favorite pimpism is don't talk about it, be about it. Don't sit around talking about all the shit you're gonna do. Go fucking make it happen, right? So that kind of hustle I'm with. The team hustle till you drop, team, no hashtag no sleep and all that bullshit. I'm not with that level of hustle.
Mm.
Like that's crazy. But the spirit of hustle to me is like, if you don't like what's going on, fucking change it. Don't sit around bitching about it. Don't, you go change it. If you don't like this fucking job, and this is my rule. Like somebody can bitch to me about a job they don't like as long as they're actively doing something to change the situation. And that's not just about jobs, it's anything, right? But people that just want to bitch and bitch and bitch, like, no. It's interesting. A friend of mine recently quit a job after 2 months. She thought it was going to be great. She moved to a different state for it. She thought it was going to be amazing. She got in there. The management was shit. It was a nightmare. And so she chose to leave after a couple months. Well, another mutual friend of ours was like, she was like, yeah, I don't understand why she changes jobs so often. But this is, she's somebody that she will stay in a job she doesn't like. And there's those of us that will put up with that. And there's those of us that are like, I don't care the fuck what this looks on my resume. I will lie on the next resume if I have to. I'm getting the fuck on. And that's how I've always been. Like I'm a good employee for the first like 3 months until I start to see the holes in the policies and procedures and I start to see how it can be done better. Not that I know everything, but there's just some things that like I don't know. It just there's just so much stupidity, as you know. And they won't listen. There's just most people will show up to a job just to get a paycheck and they have this ability to just kind of put their head down and they know what they're being told to do is retarded, but they keep doing it anyway because that's what they were told to do and they just want to get their paycheck and they don't give a fuck. I don't have that switch. I can't turn that off. Like I don't mind being told what to do as long as it makes sense. But if it's fucking stupid, or if I feel like you're not treating me correctly, or you're not treating my coworkers correctly, or not treating the customers correctly, I'm out. You know, is that kind of the spirit of why you quit your jobs and moved on to other things?
Yeah, because it was just it wasn't who I really was,
Hmm.
was is really at the core of it. I think a lot of people stay on jobs and they're really killing their soul because it's not really their life purpose or calling. You
Hmm.
s I probably was only ever truly happy when I was a military recruiter,
Okay.
and when I was a recruiter for the Texas Workforce Commission, because those 2 jobs involved mission work, ministry, in the sense that you're taking somebody from a less advantageous situation and putting them in a more advantageous situation, which is the heart of everything Jesus spoke about. So it
Right.
wasn't a spiritual job specifically, but it did good work. Tangible benefits came to people that resulted in elevated economic status. And so those are the only 2 jobs that I ever had, and maybe working in the mall because I am a fashion diva. But, that was, like, great, but the supervision sucked ass at both of them, and I was clashing. I was got kicked out of the military, and everything like that, you know but yeah, but that's why I love that about the pandemic is it caused people to face it. So
Mhm.
now they're not gonna move forward unless they're actually happy with what they're doing.
Yeah.
Everything else be damned, and I commend the world for taking the bold step. Yeah, God had to push us out there with the pandemic. The pandemic hasn't been all bad. It's just been terrible, but a lot of good has come from it too. So
I almost agree. I agree 100%. And I think it was almost like a soul conspiracy because I was limo driving at the time and I was, picking up C-suite executives that they're on the road 40 weeks out of the year. Like, and people think business travel is a vacation. It's fucking not. People on business travel work anywhere from 12 to 16 or 18 hours a day, not including the travel. Like, it's fucking brutal. And I had several clients who were like, I almost wish things would shut down just so I could get some rest. And I feel like it's like all our souls kind of got together and they're like, okay, these assholes are not going to stop on their own. We got to do something. Let's manifest a pandemic.
well, we did well.
Yeah. I mean, we had dolphins in Venice. I mean, how brilliant are we? Like,
Are dolphins a rare thing in Venice?
so yeah, the Venice canals were sewers, and I think they still are to some degree sewers. And people like the decrease in pollution and the decrease in well, it's probably for them not so much pollution, it's decrease in traffic in the canals. They actually saw dolphins in the Venice canals, which is never. I don't know at another time in history that that's ever been reported.
Yeah, I heard the stench in Venice is just ungodly.
Yeah. I wanna go before it completely sinks, just because it's the greatest courtesans, the greatest, like, most, sought after prostitutes in the world came from Venice in, like, 14th, 15th century. So I gotta make a pilgrimage there at one point, but yeah, it's steep. That's what I hear, it's steep.
So on your website, you have a few mission statements that are really cool. And one of them talks about how you're saying that you're not out to force change in the world.
Right.
You're saying that it says that you're here to invite people to see that they have options to create the lives they want to lead, that they are not chained to the status quo. And when I read that, it reminded me of Jesus. It did. And
Yeah, dude, I'll totally take that.
because he said, referring to himself, that if I be lifted up, then I will draw all men unto me,
Mhm.
which is not a statement of force. What he was telling people who are going to follow him is to simply talk him up, but then he will do the rest. And so my ministry and the way that I approach the world is the same way. I'm not trying to force anybody to believe one way or the other, but I am provoking spiritual conversation least we abandon a very important part of ourselves. And I don't give a damn if somebody wants to go be a Buddhist. I love hanging out with them. Other bald people who love vegetarian food, great. Or if they want to go be a Taoist, or whatever. It's just about having some sort of conscious spirituality about you, whatever that may be. And but it's not forced. I like to throw information shows out there, write my blogs, write my books. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. I don't care if you suck Satan's dick. We can still go have mimosas on Sunday. That's great. At least you have a fucking perspective, spiritually. And 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 I thought that that statement was so humble of you. And then I think about like Republicans, making say like laws in Texas to try to force women to live the way they think that they should. And I want you to talk about this because you have a statement on your website that you once shaved like half of your head off because your parents were trying to force you to go to church. And so I want you to talk about why you did that, what happened, and tie that into everything I just said about how Jesus was not forceful and how when people try to become forceful, they're actually stepping out of the will of Christ.
Ooh, okay. So I don't know if I could hit on everything. I love it. One of the things that people don't realize about Jesus is that he was not trying to start a new religion. Not really. He didn't. The term Christian came about later. He was trying to. My words are failing me today. Like reinvent, repurpose the Jewish faith, right? And he very much was about. This is a term that they talk about a lot in recovery is attraction rather than promotion, right? And that had, when you try to shove your views in somebody's face, all they're going to do is dig their heels in, right? So this is why when I had cancer, I didn't say I was fighting cancer. People would say, "Oh, you're fighting cancer, you're going to win." I was like, "No, no, 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 no. Anything you fight fights back." I am politely asking cancer to leave my body. That was my perspective, right? And you think about it like, what is more likely to get you curious about another way of life or another perspective? Seeing somebody else living from that perspective or that different way of life, or somebody coming to you and telling you you're wrong for doing it the way you're doing it and you should be doing it their way. It doesn't work, right? And that's part of the problem in our culture today is everybody is so fucking polarized. And I'm just like, if we could get the people on the far ends of the extremes of both quote unquote sides, and I'm like, there are no fucking sides, we're fucking Americans, right? But if we could get the people screaming loudest on both sides to shut the fuck up, the rest of us could figure it out. The people on the extremes, they have no interest in finding a solution. They want more book deals. They want more people on their YouTube channel. These people have a vested interest in keeping the chaos and the bullshit going because it's lining their pockets. And I think half the time they don't even believe what they're saying, but they just know that if I say this, I'm going to get more hits on my Facebook page or on my YouTube or, whatever. So as far as my personal experience, so I grew up in a very small rural Georgia town, and it's not that way anymore. But 40 years ago, back in the like late 70s, early 80s, it definitely was. And I would go to church, and I was always just very aware. And when they preached hellfire and brimstone constantly, I was like, I don't know what I did, but I guess I'm going to hell. I was like, I'm not. Like, what could I possibly have done? But this very learned man, supposedly, is assuring me that I'm going to hell and that I'm a worthless sinner. And I was like, what? And so I didn't enjoy it very much. And I tried very hard when I was 12 or 13. I tried very hard to become a good Christian and a cheerleader and with the whole thing. I had to hire the hair closer to God, like claw going on with my hair and everything. And I was miserable. And after that, I was like, fuck it. I was like, I'm just gonna, be who I am. And I actually started reading about paganism, which actually honors females. And the small town that I was in, not only was it hellfire and brimstone, but it was like, you're a sinner, you're always gonna be a sinner, you're nothing but a sinner in the eyes of God. If you're a woman, that goes double. If you're gay, you need to die. That was basically the order of it's like you're all shit, but if you're these part of these groups, you're super shit. So I was like super, super shit because I was a female and I was bisexual. And I hated it, and so I would sleep late. I would do all these things to try to avoid church. And my parents, wanted me to go to church because that's what you do. And I really wanted to shave my head. I really like it's a skater cut, and I just thought it looked really cool to have like partial part of your hair cut. And so I wanted to do it anyway, but I had asked my parents, like a good kid, if I could do it. And they're like, no. But I knew that if I did it, they wouldn't make me go to church because they would be ashamed of me. And so but I wasn't being that defiant yet. But the final straw was we went to this one of the more backwoods small churches in the area, and probably like one step above snake handlers. And the preacher actually had the audacity to say that women had no place in church. And in my mind, I was like, fuck it, I don't want to be here anyway. Like, and I don't have a problem with Jesus. Jesus is amazing. Like, but Jesus saved me from your fucking followers. Like so many of them, right? And so I shaved my head, and my parents, sure enough, were embarrassed and they did not make me go back to church. So win for Heather.
You know what? It is what it is. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, another one of your, I'll say mantras is you want to show folks with checkered past that, it's possible to recover and, to basically thrive after you've been broken down. So we want to get deep into your history here. Drug addiction. You mentioned cancer before, and your site talks about mental, emotional, sex abuse, trauma. So this is the part of the show where we want to get into all of the darkness that has plagued you. Go.
So bare yourself. Just no, no, no. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy. It's one of my gifts, and I'm very comfortable, talking about stuff. So from a very young age, I knew that I didn't belong where I was. I was very confused. My parents and my families and my town's beliefs did not mesh with mine. If anybody cares to remember, in the sometime in the 80s, I forget exactly when, there were two marches, two civil rights marches on my town because there was redlining going on. They would show African American families houses in the area and act as if they would sell them, but the banks would always turn down the loans. And so my town was all white. And, my family would tell you they're not racist. They're certainly not like cross burners, but they were still racist. And it made no fucking sense to me. I mean, I was very, very young, like 8 years old. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, this makes no sense. So, stuff like that. And at a very young age, I knew, actually, I didn't think there was anything wrong with being gay. It was when I was 9. My mom was having a conversation with my sister. I have no idea why, but she was like, if a girl starts telling you that you're pretty or, trying to like touch you, she's just, "Listen." And she, like, if you said it out loud, like one would just spring up from the floor. And so, that put me in the closet. And again, going to these churches, like nothing made sense. I was like, this, like, I knew, I mean, I could tell like there was some good stuff in the Bible, but there was also a lot of fucking nonsense. And I was like, no, fuck no. So I didn't have this sense of belonging. I had a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. When I was 6 or 7, an older neighbor molested me. He was only like 12, so he wasn't an adult, but that age gap, that developmental gap, it qualifies as molestation. And that was very confusing because I had gone through the good touch, bad touch program at school, and my mother was a teacher. So I went and I told her, you're supposed to tell a trusted adult. And she said that's normal and just turned around and didn't do anything to stop it. So that fucked me up pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, so just, so many people that I dated were what I now realize were narcissists and just very emotionally manipulative, just had no self-esteem. And the only thing that where I derived my self-esteem was my grades and my academic, accomplishments and my school accomplishments. I was a soccer player. I was in drama. I was co-editor of the yearbook, that kind of stuff. And then also from letting people just dump their problems on me. I was a good listener, right? And these people, this is where I get my thing about people can't talk to me about something that they're not actively trying to change. Because I would just let people go on and on for hours and then be like, "Oh, Heather, you're such a good friend. I don't know what I would do without you. You give such great advice." And then they would not take any of it. And they'd be, have you ever heard the term asshole?
Yeah.
Somebody does an asshole. right?
Yeah.
They ask all the time, but they don't really do anything. So there was a lot of that. So I took on a lot of people's problems and, I'm empathic as well. So I was really just storing all this really, really negative energy. And my home life was like subtly fucked up. Like it wasn't like screaming and yelling and like fighting and like drama and cops and all that stuff, and all to say it could have been worse. But there was just a tension in the house. Like my parents didn't really get along. And so when I got out, that's one of the reasons why I was so focused on my academics is because I knew that come hell or high water, if I got a scholarship, I could get the fuck out of this town. And I really lived in fear that like any second people were going to find out really who I was and how much I didn't belong and I was going to be stoned to death. And that was awful, So I pushed myself. I graduated second in my class. I got full scholarships, got out. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Got out, went to school, and I thought once I got out, everything was going to be okay. But what happens a lot of times when you're working so hard to like get away from something, when you finally get away from it, you get a small reprieve, but then it's like your psyche is like, oh, it's safe now to process all this crap that you pushed down and you run over with it. Right. So I entered into therapy. Well, I started doing psychedelics, which psychedelics are amazing things, but not when you're depressed and you're already like off balance and everything. And it put me more off balance. I think the depression and the kind of breakdown were coming anyway. But I got into therapy and I was in therapy for about 3 months when I woke up one morning, I couldn't stop thinking about killing myself. And I was like, I was going to be alone that weekend in my dorm because my roommate was going home to see her boyfriend or something. And I kept having this thing about like I was going to hang myself from our loft bed, which I don't even know if that's possible, but that's what kept going through my head and it scared the shit out of me. I ended up going to a local mental hospital and checking myself in. And, they did the intake and everything. And they're like, yeah, you should stay here. And I was like, fuck. The funny thing with that, though, it was a Friday night. So I had to stay on suicide ward all weekend before they could really evaluate me on Monday morning. And I was pissed. And I was like, look, if I wanted to kill myself, I would have stayed at home and done it for free. Give me my fucking belt. Give me my fucking license. If I wanted to kill myself, I would have done it at home. The other really funny thing or kind of fucked up thing is it was movie night. Like Friday night was movie night. And they're like, yeah, we're going to watch a movie in a little while. We're going to watch Thelma and Louise. And I was like, so I go to the office and I was like, they kill themselves at the end. They were like, no, 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 no.
Ah.
Released to a suicide ward. I was like, so that, that got me on psych meds, which I hated, but I took and, continued in therapy and therapy again. It kept me from jumping off the building. It was a good like release. It was a safe place for me to talk, but there wasn't enough challenging me to actually change and do something about it. And then from there, after my second year of college, my family went fucking crazy. Like went like Jerry Springer fucking crazy. But I don't even want to get, it was so bad. I don't even want to give any examples. Like it was just fucking nuts. And, I had always been curious about sex work, but I was like, I come from a good family. I come from a good family. I can't go do that. I'm smart. I can't go do that. And when my family went just really fucking crazy, I was like, you know what? I didn't do it to hurt them, but I was like, I don't really care what they think anymore. So I'm going to go have this adventure. And that's when I got into sex work. Any comments, questions, concerns at this point?
Mm-mm. Just no, not at all. Everything is going wonderfully. I'm waiting for you to get to the drugs, man.
Oh, the drugs, man. Okay. So, like I said, I was already doing psychedelics like once a month. I moved out to Hawaii briefly. I had married a friend of mine from high school. He was in the military and he couldn't live off base. He's gay. He couldn't live off base unless he advanced 2 ranks or got married. And so we got married. And it meant that when all this crisis was going on, I got to move to Waikiki. And so while I was there, I did, yeah, I did ecstasy for the first time while I was there, did acid a couple times, which is fun and amazing, but it wasn't fucking up my life at this point. When I came back to Atlanta and started escorting again, I got around people who were, daily pot smokers, all day pot smokers. I was just, smoking a little bit at the end of each night. And then I got around some people that roll blunts. And once I learned how to roll blunts, it was on and cracking. So within 2 years of, within 3 years of starting to do drugs, I had like an ounce a week pot habit. Like I was smoking like 7 blunts a day, and I could smoke an entire blunt by myself and turn around and have a conversation with you, and you wouldn't even know I was high. Like I was like that kind of fucking druggy. And, with escorting, um, they were frequently drunk. I loved to get cokeheads. Like, well, within a certain range, like people that hadn't gone too far. So what I mean by too far is the people who are like picking through the carpets. Well, once they're out of coke, it's time to go. That's just the thing. Like they're picking the carpets, it's fucking time to go. But the people that they've got plenty of blow and they just keep checking the windows, and they'll come back to the bed and they'll be like, I gotta go close the door. And they go close the door. And then after two, they come back to the bed, and like 2 minutes later, they're like, I gotta open the door. Like that shit is fucking obnoxious. The people that are just like partying, it's like babysitting, and you can be with them for hours and make shit tons of money. So like those were great. I was allergic to coke. If I did it, it shut down my nostrils for like a month, and it didn't matter the cut, whatever. Like there's something in it I'm legitimately allergic to. Um, and so I would put it on my gums and stuff, but like I never got addicted to it because of that. Smoking a lot of weed. I could never find acid, which is like my favorite thing ever. So I started doing a lot of ecstasy, and that's what I ultimately bottomed out on was ecstasy and marijuana. I'm the only person I know who hit bottom on hippie drugs. And I wound up in AA for that. And that really pissed me off. I was the last person, I was the last place I wanted to be, but it actually turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. But one of my funniest drug stories actually happened after I was sober. So I went to see this client, and this is one of the things, first thing that me and Devannon bonded over, because the name of this podcast, as you know, is Sex, Drugs, and Jesus. So I went to see this guy, and he was smoking crack, and I was sober at the time, but you can't get away from crack fumes. So I had like a secondhand like crack high, basically. But this guy was like, he was sitting in a bed, and we're watching like hardcore porn, and a lot of men on coke can't. No, a lot of men on coke can't get it up, so they can't have sex. So he was jerking off or having me jerking off. I'm just like sitting there with my lube, just going, and we're watching this hardcore porn, and he's jerking off, and he's witnessing to me about Jesus. He's like, he's telling this story, and I could never really quite get the gist of it because he was very high, but he was telling this story about, I think, picking up a hitchhiker and witnessing to him about Jesus. But he's telling the story like while he's jerking off the hardcore porn with a hooker. I was like, this is fucking weird. But the thing I didn't tell you about yet, man, was that while I'm sitting there, and I mean, I was with this guy for probably 3, 4 hours. And, I mean, he was like a middle class white guy. He wasn't like the stereotype of what you think about, crack smoker, but nonetheless, he was quite high, definitely smoking some crack. And, but we're sitting there, and I'm, kind of bored, but I'm making good money, whatever. But throughout my life, I have had what I describe as thoughts that are so loud that I know they're not mine. It's like a thought comes to me, and I'm like, well, that wasn't me. And it's God. It's God talking to me. I'm not a prophet. I'm not, claiming anything like crazy like that. But I've had instances where I'm just like, oh, okay. So I'm sitting there, this guy's, doing his thing, and I get this thought, and it was tell this man that you love him. And I was like, no, absolutely not. I don't know this person. Like, there were people that I saw enough that I did actually form emotional attachments to them. I saw them for a long time, and I saw them, over the course of years, and we really hit it off. But this was the first time I'd ever met this person. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And he would not leave me alone. He just kept pestering me and pestering me and pestering me until finally I was like, how do I do this and not come across as a crazy person or cause this guy to be a fucking stalker or something? And finally I like got up on my knees on the bed. I was like kneeling beside him, and I like put my hands on his shoulders, and I looked at him and I said, as one child of God to another, I want you to know that I love you. And it really touched something in him. And you're talking about how your job as a recruiter wasn't ministry, but it was. There were times that I was definitely used by God to deliver a message as an escort. So there were times that had a spiritual significance, and that was one of them. Sex, drugs, and Jesus, baby.
There's no reason for us to try to put God in a box or a cube or a rhombus or a trapezoid or a triangle or any fucking shape that we could come up with because he simply just will not fit.
Mhm.
And so there's okay, God can walk right into a crack house. He can talk to us when we're high. It's happened to me and stuff like that before. Some people feel like if you're drunk or high or you're in certain places that are dark or nefarious, that God's not there, but God's actually everywhere. You know,
Everywhere.
as the Bible says, he's as near to us as the air we breathe, honey. And there's air everywhere. Now, you got conservative fucks out there who want to say he's only going to be here. He can only do this and only do that. Well, that's just their opinion. And they're going to try to sell it to you as fact and law and the only way, but that's bullshit. That's just one way of looking at things.
Well, it's crazy. I had an aunt that she went Pentecostal,
Oh,
and I
Lord.
love Pentecostal churches, the feeling in them, but I just can't get down with like, a lot of the message. But she stopped hanging out with the family because we were sinners. And I'm like, Jesus hung out with sinners. Like, this has no biblical basis.
But that's the way Pentecostals are. I grew up Pentecostal. I agree with you. I love the way it felt, but I don't get down with the message because the message is very like church people are better than everyone else. Because I used to sit there thinking, God, how did I end up so lucky to be here and the whole world is going to burn in hell, but just not the Pentecostal people? Like it just that is exactly what they believe. It's how they think, and everything is a problem and it's wrong, and it's and it's very grounded in a lot of insecurity because people could really make themselves feel great about themselves the way they step on other people in Pentecostal churches. And I
Mhm.
wanted to touch on something that you were saying about the sort of person who was smoking this here crack.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I've smoked crack in my day too.
I've smoked. I love crack. Crack rocks.
Literally crack rocks. So, and this is something that I really like to talk about a lot is because crackheads and the drug use in general is not like it's done like on documentaries or like
Mhm.
say Dave Chappelle and his whole Tyrone Biggums. Not every crackhead is homeless with white powdery lips and a beanie and all of that. I used to sell crack to older white men who lived in huge as houses. This one
Mhm.
house we went to, his closet was so big that me, the four dope boys who came with me, and all of us could sit in there with plenty of space to smoke the crack off of a mirror and everything like that. And this dude lived in a damn good neighborhood in Houston, Texas, and it was not what you would think. He had all
Right.
teeth, and all of that and everything like that. And it's like Governor Chris Christie. He likes crack and prostitutes. That's what he was in the news for. He's overweight and white and a governor, and he wants him some crack, bitch.
Yeah.
It's
I, you know, politicians. I didn't. Did I see? I don't remember if I saw politicians. It probably just didn't stick because I don't give a fuck. Like high powered jobs. Lawyers love coke, love crack. Doctors love coke, love crack. CEOs, that there's kind of a profile that goes with, jobs and the type of drugs that people are more commonly going to do in them. And high powered white men love some fucking blow. They do. I can confirm that.
I know. I used to sell so much cocaine in upscale bars and stuff. They'd call me. I'd pull up with like an 8 ball, go in there. It's just a group of for probably Caucasian people partying up in VIP. That shit sells so fast. They can
Fuck yeah.
afford it. It's a quick high. You got to keep more to say getting high. It's a smart bet, if you're going to be a drug dealer, cocaine, you know.
Well, the problem being like the penalties are so high. That's one of the reasons why I love selling pussy because it was a misdemeanor. I can, and that you got it, you sell it, you still got it. You
Right.
didn't have to re up.
Well, you can go to Oregon now, and you don't. The penalties are less severe. There's no more going to jail for simple possession. I think there is for like dealers, but it seems like the general attitude in the state of Oregon is more like lenient towards drugs in general.
Well, because the thing is like the war on drugs, again, we're back to this, what you fight fights back. The war on drugs does not work. You know, decriminalization has been shown in other places to be much better for all consensual crimes. You know, criminalizing it doesn't help anything. It just makes shit worse. It just drives it underground. Like these are basic human desires and they're not going anywhere. They're just going to be subverted where it's going to be a lot more dangerous for everybody involved.
It makes it taboo and people love danger. People love what they can't have.
That too. I've actually read studies where they said that kids were less likely to go get high in places that there wasn't a stigma around it. It was like, oh, I could just go to the store and buy weed. Nah. But it's like, oh, okay, we've got to call my cousin and he's got to call his best friend's girlfriend so that we can find, this dude that she knows, and then we get there. We can't just buy the weed. We got to go find him a pair of Jordans.
It's a whole thing.
It becomes like an adventure, right? It's like, oh,
Right.
complicated, but if we could just, walk into a store and be like, give me an eight, like that's not very exciting, you know, whatever.
One of the meth suppliers that I usually get my meth from, he would say that was probably the main reason why he stayed supplying crystal meth in Houston was because of the thrill of almost getting caught. So that tells me if you make it illegal, hey, everyone can just sell whatever the fuck they want. He'd probably shut it down because there's no more thrill of the chase. There's no more Tom and Jerry. There's no more Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. There's
I love that shit. I do. That's one of the things I missed about escorting was that just like I'm doing something kind of like I'm doing something illegal. I might get caught, behind this door. It could be a rapist, a killer. It could be a hot sports, hot pitcher. It could be a cop. I don't know, like it's just there's one of the things that we found in recovery is that you're not just addicted to the drugs, you're addicted to the trauma and the adrenaline, too.
Mhm.
So people are always going to get their kicks. Criminalization is just it's the worst idea. It just feeds the prison industrial complex. All it does.
Absolutely. And hopefully, you know what? I just speak and declare it will all be legal one day. Mm.
Well, and I like decrim because if you make it so that it's still illegal unless you have a license or something, you're still going to be wasting cop manpower and space and everything on people who are selling it outside, right? Selling it outside the legal system. But having an option of like you can go buy from Joe Blow Coke dealer on the corner if that's what gets you off, or you can just go to this dispensary, right? You can go get the stuff that has been it's legally they've documented, you know exactly what's in it. But if you want to risk your life, with your neighborhood guy, go do that, whatever. Like we'll be there when the ambulance.
Like Rick James would say, it's hospital time. Whenever he'd overdose. So tell us, so tell us about when did you find out you had breast cancer and what stage did it get to?
So, ladies, go get your fucking mammograms. Let me say this. I hate Western medicine. I stopped using, most doctor services, about 10 years ago. And I was doing everything through supplements. It did amazing things for my health in so many fucking ways. But I would still go get checkups. So I got a checkup just really out of spite because I was about to leave my corporate job that I fucking hated. I was a leasing agent for an apartment complex. Talk about dirty. Just talk about dirty practices in the fucking leasing industry. Holy shit. And I hated it. So I was just about to quit and start my limo company. And I went to just use the health insurance one last time and got my yearly exam. And I go in, I hadn't felt anything in my breast. The doctor did a breast exam while I was there. And he was like, yeah, I don't feel anything, but you're over 40, go get your mammogram. So I went and got the mammogram and I'm just thinking, whatever, I'm fine. A few days later, got the call and had to go get a follow-up mammogram, which turned into having a biopsy. So in the biopsy, they're like, yeah, it's stage 0, which I'd never even heard of stage 0. They're like, it's stage 0, but it's the worst type of stage 0 that there is. And you probably have invasive cancer in your outside of your milk ducts. It's just not showing in this biopsy. So they're like, you need to get a mastectomy and radiation. And I'm like, hold up. I've got stage 0, which I've never even heard of, and the least thing that you can do is cut me and burn me. I'm like, it doesn't fucking make any sense. So I got several second opinions, which I encourage anybody, anything you're going through, go get second opinions. And, but everybody confirmed, they're like, yeah, it's cancer. So when I finally got the mastectomy 3 months later, what they thought was stage 0 turned out to be stage 3. It had gotten into 3 of my lymph nodes. And whereas before they were saying, and it was a 7 centimeter area of disease and it was unfeelable at all. It was stage 3 and you still couldn't feel anything. So yeah, so I had that done and found out I was going to have chemo and was really, 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 really pissed off about it. I actually went through another period of suicidal ideation when that happened, but I had therapy. I had a therapist and, really great group of friends. I had to go through 6 chemo treatments, 25 radiation treatments, and I got a burn so bad that my boob looked like it was awful. But wound care actually helped me heal that in like 2 weeks. I did not think that would have been possible. So 6 real chemo treatments and then 7.5 months of infusion drugs. And now I'm clear and I've been clear for 3 years. So I'm on the downside of the little graph of recurrence, possibility of concern for it. So right now I have beat it. So grateful. So fucking grateful.
Thank the Lord, child.
Yes. I got rebaptized after I did that. At my aunt's Pentecostal church. I was like, I'm gonna go get baptized.
That's a step
That's
up from
yeah, slaying in the spirit and everything.
that's a step up from shaving your head. You definitely
Well,
want to
but the funny thing is I was completely bald when that happened because I had been through chemo.
you know what? That true. So you did go to church bald after all.
I did, and they got it on TV for the whole world to see, and I think it was just Facebook at the time. Now they're on TV. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Ain't nothing wrong with being slain in the spirit as long as it's, an authentic experience. And it can be hard to tell with some people when it is and when it isn't. Sometimes I say on my show about Sister Susie, she's the one who's always faking it every Sunday. There she go up and down the aisle.
Mhm.
This is not a Sister Susie moment. This was a reinvention. You wanted to do something to signify your rebirth, and the Lord touched you. And so
Yeah, and so I had gone to her church a couple of times, and her congregation takes it a step further. It's not just that only Pentecostals are going to heaven. Her church is the only church that is going to heaven. Other Pentecostals in other churches all over the world, everybody's going to hell except for the people in her church. And they believe this. They really fucking believe it. So I knew that was a little crazy, but I went and there were things I liked about it. I went a few times and they didn't preach against gays. And I was like, well, this is different. This is kind of cool. So I went to get baptized and I'd seen all these people fall out. And I was like, about half of that is real. I was like, about half of it's real. And half of it is somebody, they're so afraid that somebody's looking at them and seeing they're the person who didn't get slain in the spirit. And what is everybody going to think if I didn't speak in tongues and all that mess? And so I went up there and I just thought it was a symbolic thing, right? And, they asked me, they're like, why are you doing this? Microphone in my face. And I'm like, yeah, this is what God needs is, all this equipment, all this, audio-visual equipment or whatever. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just asking God to remove from me everything that stands in the way of me, you know, living, for my highest good, for, other people's highest good." Blah, blah, blah. So they dunked me and then they like were carrying me out of the pool. And I was like, why are they carrying me? Like I can stand up. But I realized later my eyes were closed, but they went and they draped me over this girl's lap who was sitting on the stairs in the back of the pool. And these 3 girls were like praying over me. And I started just convulsing. And I was like, this is weird. And it was like being struck by spiritual lightning. And it was like so enlivening, but it was like, it felt like somebody touching your sexual organ after you've had an orgasm and you're like, whoa, too much. And so I like drank it in and I was like, holy shit. So that's what that feels like, like, wow, like that's what that feels like. I guess some of those people, I never doubted that none of it was real, but I did think that a lot of it was fake. And so it was interesting to have a genuine experience. I was like, "Huh,
I've had experiences like that only a handful of times,
yeah,
enough to know that it's real. And And I've been praying a lot lately in my prayers that the Lord begins to reveal himself to people in ways like that, that people are going to know that's undeniable, or in some sort of way, send an angel, send a dream, touch them with that spiritual lightning so that he becomes real to them. Because all my talking and all of that, I can't expect for somebody to believe in a God that hasn't revealed himself to them in some sort of way,
Right.
tangible way that makes sense to their psyche. And
Yep.
so I've been praying for the Lord to go forth to show himself to people because there's so much fakeness going on in the news and our politics and everything like that. I'm asking the Lord to give people something real, to give them himself because it's the only thing that makes sense in the midst of all of this confusion. And
Amen and hallelujah. I love that's a beautiful prayer. That is a beautiful prayer.
mhm. So then the last thing we're going to talk about, and then I'll let you have the last word, is this. You had some media appearances on A, B, and C. There was a documentary for one of them called Sex, Drugs, and Consenting Adults. I want to know how this came about, how they heard about you, why did they want you for this documentary? What did you contribute?
So when I was within my first year of working, I had a really negative experience with a client that tried to rape me. And when I called the police arrested us both. And they told me if I would let him go, that they wouldn't press charges against me. And, he didn't have a mark on him. I had like a cut on the side of my head where he backhanded me. And it pissed me the fuck off. I went to jail for the night. The next day I got up, or didn't get up, I didn't wake up, but I, spent the night in jail and had to let this guy go in front of a judge because I didn't know what to do in the situation. And then I found out that there were prostitutes' rights activists. And the first one was Call Off Your Old Tired Ethics, acronym was Coyote. And they started out, of course, in California. And I found out that they had a sister organization in Atlanta called Hooking is Real Employment or Hire. And the woman who ran that was a woman named Dolores French. And she had written a book. She was the first sex worker to come on a talk show without covering her face. Like she went on, unmasked with her, real name and everything and just told everybody, she's like, this is a job. This is what I love. This is what I believe. So I read the book and I recognized some parts of her story. I was like, wait a minute, that sounds like the agency I work for. So I contacted them and they're like, yeah, man, she's great. You should get in touch with her. So it took a while, but I finally got in touch with her and she was kind of over being the face of this organization. So she just turned it over to me and became my mentor. So she had been on Donahue, Geraldo, I think everything except Oprah. I mean, she'd been on like all the major talk shows. So she had a lot of media contacts and ABC contacted her and, wanted somebody to interview. And she said, I've got this girl. So for the first one, the sex, drugs and consenting adults, they wanted to do like just a scene of me walking in to see a client, but she negotiated with them and she's like, no, we'll give you that. But the only way we'll do that is if you also interview her, and actually use at least one of her, talking points. And so I think I only had like one talking point that they actually used. It was like maybe a 30-minute interview and they cut it down to like one sentence. But I was making the comparison between boxing and prostitution. It's like, why is it okay for people to use their bodies in this way, but not that? Kind of find out they're trying to outlaw boxing too, or they were at the time. So it wasn't really a great comparison, but you could say like a ballerina uses her body to make money and it's okay. Why is it not okay for a woman to choose to use her body to massage people with other parts of her body? Essentially. So I did that. I was on the local news a couple of times. I was on an MTV documentary and that one, I was featured very heavily in it. There was 3 of us, and I think I got the most screen time out of anybody. And, I did stand-up comedy about my life as a call girl. I spoke to the abnormal psych classes at Georgia State University and Emory University, which was a lot of fun, for people to see, like, it's not the stereotype. I'm not the person you expect to come in, saying that they're a sex worker. But it was really all just to raise awareness. It's like, this is a job. We're people, and just fucking let us do our jobs. This is what we want to do. Let us go do it. People being trafficked, that's fucked up. People being forced into this by nefarious, people, that's fucked up. But those of us who just wake up one day and say, hey, I would really like to have a blowjob be a real job, let us go.
I would support that industry because it is hard work to suck dick. You need like a neck massage and everything when you're done in hand jobs. Oh, don't get me started. It's a great way to stay toned.
But it's also a great way to have carpal tunnel. I have carpal tunnel. I did for a while. And it was because of, because you can't just be doing this. You got to get the twist in there. You got to like,
Yeah, you gotta work that shit. Okay. So I like to always let my guests have the last word, Heather. So what advice it could be you can speak to anyone, any audience, any plane of existence, whatever. And from your heart to whomever, what would you say? What would you say to my listeners? What would you say?
So I'm going to go back to the mission you mentioned about one of the hardest things for me as a coach, as a new coach, was that so many people's stories were I went to college, I had a corporate job, I killed it in the corporate job, I hated it, and now I'm a coach. And my story was I'm a college dropout, ex drug addict, hooker, you know, and it was like, and when my story didn't fit with other people's, and now I know it's my superpower. But at the time, like it made it really hard, and I really doubted myself more. It was like, yeah, they can do it because they've had normal lives. Like I can't do it because I'm not normal. Was my thing, and so that's I want people to know, number one, I meant to be a transformational coach, never meant to be a business coach. I want people to know that there are ways for you to heal from trauma. And just because you had shitty things happen, I've been raped, I've, was molested. I grew up in really highly dysfunctional, family dynamics. I've been suicidal, all this stuff. I've come out the other side of it because I wanted it that bad. And I worked until I found ways. And if, I went into something and it didn't work, I moved on to the next thing. Like, okay, if that didn't work, I'm going to try EFT. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try hypnosis. If that doesn't work. And it's like every step of the way, you're going to get some healing. Some things are going to work better than others, but just keep trying. Just keep trying. Right. And just because you've got trauma in your past, it doesn't have to define you. Right. Just because you have addiction in your past, it doesn't have to define you. And, just because you've made the choice to engage in criminal activity, that doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to be who you are. And even if you are still a drug dealer, it doesn't mean that you can't do good things in the world, right? So I just want to let people know your past only defines you if you let it. And you don't have to be like me and be asked out and be talking about, giving hand jobs and telling people you love them because Jesus told you to. I think more of us need to be real about, where we come from and just know that there are people out there that had some really shady past or really like tragic things in their past and they've overcome it and they're being a positive contribution to the world and you can too.
You get the Nancy Pelosi side. Chamber clap on that one. Thank you so much, honey, for all of your words of encouragement, your transparency. That's a key thing that I look for with anybody I'm going to have on my show is the ability to really talk about what the hell happened and not beat around the bush. Just give us the tea.
All the tea.
People, of course, can find you at heatherwylde.com, HEATHERWYLDE.com, and all of that will be in the show notes. And then we will go from there, honey. Thank you so much. And I look forward to having you back on the show again once your book is out.
Lovely. Well, thank you. Thank you to all the listeners. Thank you, Devon, for having me on. I really appreciate you. I love what you're doing in the world. So keep at it.
Thank you all so much for taking time to listen to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. It really means everything to me. Look, if you love the show, you can find more information and resources at sexdrugsandjesus.com or wherever you listen to your podcast. Feel free to reach out to me directly at devannon@sexdrugsandjesus.com and on Twitter and Facebook as well. My name is Devannon, and it's been wonderful being your host today. And just remember that everything is going to be all right.